A wonderful morning, everyone. Uh, this is from Management Family. We would like to extend a warm welcome and sincere thanks to all our customers, partners, and users who are interested in our solutions. So, endpoint management and security is one of the main focus of Manage Engine. Let me introduce myself. My name is Surya, and I'm a product specialist with Manage Engine. I take care of endpoint management products, including Desktop Central. I'm a seasoned technical support engineer assisting customers in their implementation, consultation, and troubleshooting in case of any challenges. So, endpoint management and security. So, in today's webinar, we'll focus on endpoint management solutions, which have different product portfolios under management and security. So, during today's session, we will be discussing Desktop Central Suite, which has management and security capabilities. So once again, welcome to Desktop Central training, focusing on how to tune your Desktop Central to adapt to the distributed workforce. So we are on week 3 of this training schedule, which is about software deployment. And this is one of the modules of our endpoint management and security suite. So we earlier had patch management and unified endpoint security. So if you're interested in the training, or if you missed the earlier trainings, please visit the link below and register yourself. And it's not just about the training, you will also be receiving a participation certificate, including series 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So visit the website below for more information about that as well. So let's look at software deployment today. Let me quickly talk about the agenda of what we are going to discuss about. So we'll be talking about the overview of what Desktop Central is all about. We'll be talking about a distributed workforce and how we manage a distributed workforce with some example on it. And we'll talk about how you deploy business application using our templates. And we'll talk about how you deploy a commercial application to a specific department in case if the application is not available in the templates. And we'll talk about self-service portal for non-admins, and we'll talk about frequently asked questions related to software deployment. So this is a traditional example. We have John here, responsible for managing a distributed workforce. He's managing around 10,000 endpoints distributed across different areas with different bandwidth. So this is the traditional way of how we handled it in the on-prem architecture of Desktop Central. Now, this is possible with the cloud architecture of Desktop Central as well. So we have come up with a SaaS-based solution where you'll be able to perform all those management tasks even in the cloud version of it. So how John is managing, whether it's an on-premises or a cloud solution, we'll be able to manage users who are connecting to Desktop Central either via VPN or using a direct internet connection. So we'll be able to manage them all in different scenarios is what we're talking about here. So we will see what challenges our IT people are facing in managing a distributed workforce. So previously we were all in work from office, and the access to in-house application was quite easy. They didn't need much authentication there. The patches were getting properly updated. And moving back to the work from home scenario, we have a risk of unauthorized access, and we'll have to configure lots of BYOD devices. You'll have to deploy business collaboration tools and manage them and need to have them available for the users. Then there is a need for an extra authentication because people are working from home, and that needs to be considered as well. And of course, there is a big challenge with the internet. So the customers are using their own home internet. So we have to go with the minimal bandwidth there as well. And there are challenges in back to office. Now everyone's back to office, then the devices that we were previously using, the endpoints, they have to be checked for compliant, and you have to quarantine those non-compliant devices. You have to check the security compliance, and you'll have to define new patching or security policies that works for this new hybrid workforce. So these are all the challenges that we are facing today. And we will talk about how Desktop Central helps you overcome these as well. And particularly since we're talking about software deployment, these are all the challenges we face when it comes to software deployment. So making the business applications available for the users to install at their convenience. So most of them are VPN based, and they had to have the business applications available for them. So that's one of the challenges. And we have to restrict unwanted software installations by the users. So blacklisting or whitelisting the software is a need. And we also have too many software deployment related help desk requests. So this is a common scenario that we face when people are working from home. They'll need lots of software to be deployed to their machines, and they will be creating plenty of tickets for the same. And the IT administrator will be flooded with these requests. So these are all the challenges that we face in a software deployment scenario. So what is Desktop Central? We call Desktop Central a UEM solution, and here's what Forrester defines a unified endpoint management is. So the products that provide a centralized policy engine for managing and securing employee laptops and mobile devices from a single console. So that's what we do with UEM edition of Desktop Central. We focus on both the traditional and modern management of the devices. So it is a combination of a traditional management, you have MDM in it, you have modern management for Windows and Mac devices, and we also have it combined with OS deployment. So everything combined, we have the Desktop Central UEM suite. And these are all some of the features that we offer with the unified endpoint management. The first thing that you notice here is that you'll be able to automate update management. You'll be able to create a schedule, and you can deploy the updates as per the requirements of your organization. So it's going to be completely flexible that way. You have data loss prevention. So we have some browser security tools, and we have device control tools with which you'll be able to prevent data loss on the devices by creating different types of policies. Then we have web protection. We have device compliance to see if a device is compliant or not. And we have analytics and reporting of these different features that we offer as well. Then, of course, we have device provisioning, where you can enroll different types of devices and manage them accordingly. Then we have application management, if you'd like to decide what applications to be allowed or not. Then we have configuration management, where we can deploy different software patch or settings or policies, different types of configurations. Then we have asset intelligence, where you will be able to get the details of the inventory of software and different hardware that are managed within these devices. And of course, we have remote device management, where you can remote control into these devices and work on them. And we also have continuous vulnerability assessment. So it's not just about scanning the computers for missing patches. It's also about scanning for vulnerabilities that's caused because of loopholes within the machines. That are like settings or software that are misconfigured might also create vulnerabilities, and we'll be able to detect that. So these are some of the key features that we offer here in the Desktop Central's unified endpoint management. And let's quickly look at the awards that we have received in 2020 and 2021. Manage Engine is recognized in 4 top IDC market space reports for UEM 2021, which is Worldwide Unified Endpoint Management Software 2021 Vendor Assessment. We have software for Apple devices, software for small and medium-sized businesses 2019-2020. We got software for ruggedized Internet of Things deployment 2021. So Desktop Central is also recognized for Best Unified Endpoint Management Tool of 2019 as reviewed by customers in Gartner Peer Insight Customer's Choice Award. We are recognized for Client Management Tool Division in Magic Quadrant for the second consecutive year. We are recognized for both traditional and modern management. So moving on, we've been talking about endpoint. So what is an endpoint when it comes to Desktop Central's UEM? So when we mean endpoint, we mean all these devices, laptops, desktops, mobile devices or tablets. We even do point of sale devices, we have browsers and servers included. So all these are considered as endpoints. And what operating systems we support? We support Windows, we support Mac, Linux, and mobile operating systems, Android and iOS devices as well. So here you're just seeing the classification of different flavors of the operating systems that we support. And all these information will be available on our website as well. So we'll quickly look at Desktop Central's architecture and we'll talk about the overall view of it. So what you're looking at is the on-premises architecture of Desktop Central. So since it's an on-premises, you have to install the Desktop Central server in one of your machines within your firewall. And you have to install the Desktop Central agents in these client machines because this works as a client server model. So the agents will communicate with the server, it'll fetch the information, and it'll will be able to manage the patching, software deployment, and everything straight away from this view. And for computers that are outside your network, we have something called a secure gateway. So the secure gateway is also a small component that you install in your DMZ. And since it is in the DMZ, you can securely host it in your internet. And the public FQDN will be available for all the agents, so they can easily reach that via the internet. And thereby, we will be able to manage these devices without any intervention there as well, and in a secured way. And if computers are in other offices, let's say you have more than 10 or 20 computers in an office, and they're all using internet to download the patches and the software from the Desktop Central server. In such cases, they'll be using a lot of internet bandwidth. So to minimize the bandwidth consumption, we have something called a distribution server. So the distribution server is also a small component that you install in a Windows machine. What it does is it will be downloading the necessary patches for all your computers, necessary software for all your computers in that office. It'll download it from the internet once, and then it uses the local intranet connection to distribute it. Thereby, you'll be able to save a lot of bandwidth as well. And in case if there are any bandwidth restrictions that you would like to impose, like we saw in an example where there is a limited bandwidth, you can impose bandwidth restrictions in the distribution server as well. The other advantage is that when you want to manage roaming users, you don't need a separate way to do that. The secure gateway is easily be able to handle that as well. So the roaming users will be able to reach the public FQDN of the secure gateway over the internet, and they will be managed in a similar way. The endpoints within the machine are managed as well, and in a secured way as well. And if you have an on-prem AD, an Active Directory, you'll be able to integrate with that as well. And if you would like to deploy a patch or a software and target it to an OU or an AD group, you'll be able to do that by integrating with the Active Directory. So yeah, this is the basic architecture of how Desktop Central works. And moving on, we also have a SaaS-based solution. So in case if you think that setting up a Desktop Central server, managing the hardware for the secure gateway server, ensuring the certificate is installed there. So if you are someone who don't want to go through these hassles, we have something called Desktop Central Cloud, which you have implemented. It's a SaaS-based solution. So all you do is just sign up for it and start installing the agents and start managing them. So it's as simple as that there. So if you need more information about it, you can go to the website below and you can sign up for that as well. So moving on to today's topic, we have software deployment. So we'll see how software deployment works. So for any software deployment to work, the basic thing is to upload the software and get it deployed to the client machines. So the software has to be saved in a repository. So we have two types of repository here, a network share and a HTTP repository. The software is going to be fetched from the repository, transferred over to a distribution server if it is in a different office. And the distribution server is going to distribute it to the client machines, and it's going to get deployed over there. We'll see this in real time, and I'll just show you how this looks in the UI. So we have under software deployment something called software repository. So by default, when you install Desktop Central, you will get a software repository for both a network share and a HTTP repository. We will see the difference between them. A network share, as you know, is the traditional way of getting a software distributed. So everyone will have access to that network share and they can just easily download it from there. And we are using the same method here. In case if you don't want to use the network share created by Desktop Central, you have an option to choose your existing share and provide that location here. And HTTP repository is where if people don't have access to your network share, they won't be able to get the software from it. So to overcome that, we have HTTP repository. With HTTP repository, the software will be downloaded to the Desktop Central server from whichever machine you're uploading it from. From there, it will be distributed to all the client machines using the HTTP method. So this is going to be efficient if we are talking about work from home computers and even roaming computers or computers which are connecting over the internet but doesn't have access to the network share. So that's how that's the difference between these two. So moving on, you'll see the difference between the network share and HTTP repository. So network share, it has its own advantage. There is no limit for the file size, right? So it depends on how much hard drive space you have allocated for the network share. It depends on the size of the folder and things like that. So there is no limit for it. You can make it as big a file as you can. But HTTP repository have a disadvantage there of being allowed only 7 gigs of data. But this 7 gigs is more than enough for at least 95% of the software that you might have come across. So you'll be able to make use of this feature easily there as well. And when you have a network share, we can deploy it, like I mentioned, only to those LAN agents. By that, we mean the machines are the endpoints that are communicating locally to the Desktop Central server. And with HTTP repository, we can overcome that. As mentioned, we can even make the wide area network agents easily communicate with it and get the respective software from it easily. And the setup and maintenance is something that you need to concern about the network share. So you need to ensure that the machine is up and running, the folder is not corrupted. There are lots of things we need to ensure there, but you don't have to worry about it when we talk about HTTP repository as well. So when it comes to software, we have around 8,000 predefined templates for Windows, Mac, and Linux. We have them all added to our database. We have a special team here who downloads these software. They will have them tested in an operating system level, and then they will upload it to our database. So when you have software downloaded from our database, you can easily download it and install it from there. It will bring it up. You just choose the one that you want and create a package straight away from here. So we will see how this is done for Microsoft Teams, which is a non-commercial application. And we'll see how to deploy this to a specific group of computers. Right. So first we will see how to create a group, right? So when it comes to Desktop Central, we mentioned that we can deploy it to an AD group or to an OU. Apart from that, we also provide options where you can create custom groups. So it could be a list of groups. We support both static and dynamic type of groups. So you can just select all your computers that you want in a group and create a group for that. Or you can just choose a criteria. Let's say you want to group all the computers that belongs to an operating system, let's say Windows 10, and you have another criteria. It should also fall under a service pack, which is equal to the version 21H2. In such cases, this will be, you can just name it the way you want. And when you are targeting it, you'll be able to target it easily to any of these groups. So in this example, we are going to see how to deploy Teams. So the first step is I'll go to my templates and I'll see if Teams is already available in our templates. It is. So I've already added this to my packages. So as you can see, you'll have an option called Create Package. And when you click on it, it'll in the backend, it'll get the details from Microsoft and it'll automatically create a package for it with the details of the silent switches and everything that you need for Teams to get installed silently without any user intervention on the client side. So I have Microsoft Teams here. I just confirmed it. So if I'm deploying it, I'll have option to either deploy it to user base or to a computer base. So I can do either. And let's say I'm selecting Microsoft Teams here. By default, we use the system user privileges in the client machines to deploy it. So this is more than enough. It's similar to an administrator account. When we deploy any software with system user, it will have enough privileges to install it with elevated permissions. But in case of a particular software demands admin rights, you have an option to run it as administrator as well. So you can add your admin account and use that to get it deployed. So when we are deploying it, you also have the option where you can schedule it to be deployed after a particular time. Let's say I just want the patches to be, the software to be installed during the weekend. I can just select that, and I can choose the time as well during when the software deployment should start. And again, we also have deployment policies. So deployment policy, we have some predefined deployment policies for different needs. If you want to do it during business hours or anytime at the earliest, which is commonly used if you want to deploy a software immediately. Or you can even create your own policy, with which you can schedule it, like what time the agents should get that particular software installed in the machines. And if you want a reboot to happen after this restart. So everything is configurable in this deployment policy, right? So you choose the one that works for you, and you can deploy it to any machines. Like I mentioned here, we are going to target it to a particular department. So I have created a domain, and I'll be able to see the AD groups, the OUs, and I'll be able to deploy it to the custom group that I've created as well. So in this case, I created a custom group called Windows 10, and I can deploy it to this as well. And you also have a retry option here, as you can see. For example, if I'm deploying this software to 50 computers, and if 20 were off at that time, instead of returning you a failure message, it'll wait for the machines to come back up. And during the startup, we will install the software. And we also have something called during refresh. So the refresh policy is something where every 90 minutes, the agents will communicate with the server to see if there are any new configurations available for them. So during that time, it will be able to fetch the software that it has missed, and it will get it installed again. So we'll be able to ensure one way or other the software gets installed in these machines. There are other nuances to it. There are little features which I haven't talked about, but we'll discuss about it in the future. So that's it. So you'll have two options here, either to deploy or to deploy immediately. And when you click on deploy immediately, as the name suggests, it will be instantaneous. So the agents will fetch the new configurations and it'll get it installed. If you choose deploy, it will have to wait for the refresh policy, which we mentioned earlier. So within a 90-minute interval, they will reach the desktop central server and it'll get the software deployed. So this is how we would deploy any software that is already available in our templates with additional settings. Let's say you also need to modify this package. Maybe you want to see if Teams is already installed in certain machines. If it is already installed, you may want to skip the installation, right? So you don't want to get an error message because of that. So for this, we have lots of pre-deployment and post-deployment activities here. So with the pre-deployment activity, you can check for a software, you can check for free disk space. You have an option to execute a script and then install it. You have an option to copy a file and then install a software. You have option to change registry settings or uninstall software and install this software. So there are lots of options you have in both pre-deployment and post-deployment activities, and they're all configurable as well. So with the pre-deployment settings, you have an option to check for a particular software. This is what we need this time. So we are going to see if a particular software, I don't have Teams installed here, so I'll just choose a particular software here, and I'll see if the Teams version equals this is already there. If it is there, I don't want to proceed with the installation. I can just skip the installation. So this pre-check will be happening when we deploy this software to any machine. So that's how we will be able to modify a package and deploy it to any machines as well. So the next one, we will see how we deploy a commercial application, in this case, Office 365, to a specific group of computers, right? So Office 365 is one of the commonly used application, and it is one of the most requested software to be added to our templates because it's a commercial application. We don't have that in our templates, but in case if you're searching for Office 365, let's do that. If I'm searching for Office 365, I don't have an option to create a package, but it leads me to a KB, a documentation, which is talking about how you deploy Office 2016 or Office 365. If you're looking at deploying Office 2019, we have a documentation for that as well. So you will have clear information about, like step-by-step information about how you create an package for Office deployment. So we will do that while we are in the session. So the first step is you download the package for Office 365. So for being, I mean, if you come across Office 365, you know that there are different versions and different licensing involved in it. So based on what you get, when you sign up for it, you'll be able to download the required application. So the first step that you do here is you'll be able to download the tool that we use for downloading Microsoft Office, so which is called the Office Deployment Tool. I have already downloaded it. Let me just quickly share this. So you have an Office Deployment Tool that has to be downloaded. The second step is extracting this information. So when you extract it, it'll get you all the setup files and the configuration files, and you will be using the command prompt to extract it. So we have this information about how we do that. So you just follow the command that we have here along with the file path where you're copying it. You should be able to extract it fine. Once it is extracted, you can customize the XML file. You can either configure it using the method that we have in the documentation. You can modify an existing configuration.xml file, and you can just modify this file and rename it if you want, and then choose what type of applications are to be included. Maybe you don't want Microsoft Access to be included, so you're excluding that app. If you want to exclude Microsoft Word, you can just add a next line, exclude app ID equals Word. So you'll have this information available in Microsoft sites, and we have a link for that as well. So you can just exclude those that you don't want. You have option to enable updates. You can do this either the manual method, or you have an automated method here as well. You can go to Microsoft's configuration page, where you will have information about the whole uh, way of configuring the Office package. So you can choose what architecture you want, um, which Office suite that you've purchased for. If you need Visio, do you need project? So based on whatever you need, you can select that. And you can turn off those things that you don't need. If I don't want OneDrive, if I don't want access, I can just disable them. If I don't need OneDrive desktop, I can do that. And I can configure language settings here. So this is one of the easiest methods to get the XML file. So during the installation, if you want to enable upgrades automatically, even the EULA can be agreed directly here. So you don't have to go through that, and users will not be prompted during the installation of Office 365. And yeah, so once you have them all configured, you just export it. And once you export it, you will have an XML file created automatically. So this XML file will have the information about uh, all the settings that you have selected here. And we will use this when you are deploying it. So there are two methods you add a software here. So we will see how you do that here. So I have all the necessary packages downloaded. I'm sorry. So I have all the necessary XML files. I have the setup file extracted. I can just directly deploy it from here. The setup file that we see here is the one time or the click to run setup file. So when you deploy it, it will automatically download all the necessary setup files on the client machines and it will get it installed. So this is one method to go about. Or you can download the complete setup and you can upload all the files needed here in the package and you can deploy it as well. So we will see both. So first I'm going to create a package for Office 365. And I'm going to choose MSI exec exe type application here. It is not an MSI file. It's not a single file. It doesn't have any MSB parameters. So since we are dealing with exe type installation, we are choosing that. And I'm going to choose commercial because it's a commercial type application. And then I'm going to upload it from the local computer. In case if you have a shared folder, you have to configure a network share, and you will be specifying your network share location along with the file name of it. It'll be in this format. Um, I'll quickly show you the differences here. So in network share, I have the setup.exe file here, and I'm going to use the path, and then I'm going to configure it with the XML file that I have created. So this is the command we are going to use when we're dealing with network share. But if I'm dealing with HTTP repository, the setup file is going to be copied over to the client machine. So I'll just upload the setup file, and I will mention that it has to be configured based on the XML file that I'm uploading. So it will still have the settings copied over to it. So I will add all the applications. So this is the configuration file I have created, and this is the setup file I have created. I just need these two if I'm doing dealing with the one-time click file. In case if I'm dealing with the whole package, I will have the whole package here. Either I can upload it one by one, each file, or I can zip them and I uploaded in one go as well. So both will work. So when you are doing it as a zip file, it's going to get extracted on the client machines, and it is still going to execute the file name that we are specifying here. So here I'm going to use the HTTP method. And I'm going to add the setup files that I need. And I'm going to add package. Say, I don't want any pre-deployment or post-deployment activities here. So I just want to plainly install it. So I have my package created. So then I can install it to any computer. So I will name this configuration. And I don't want to schedule it. I'm going to application that I want to install. This is a package we just created. And I'm going to deploy it to all the computers immediately. So I'm going to choose deploy anytime at the earliest. And this is going to be deployed to the group we just created. So I'm going to select all my domain, and whoever in that group should get this Office package. So that's how you select your target. And if I want retry, I'll still enable it, and I'll deploy it to those machines. So this is how I create a commercial application directly from Desktop Central. Okay. So moving on, we have application control. So this is one of the commonly asked questions, and how to restrict non-business applications. So we have come up with some security add-ons, and one of them is called application control. So application control, I'll quickly show you what it is. So application control is a security add-on which is going to deal with whitelisting and blacklisting applications. So you will be able to create different types of policies. So whitelisting is where you decide what applications you want in your organization, except that none of the other applications will be allowed. So either you can create a whitelisting, which is going to be a very strict way of enforcing application management. In case if you don't want that, you just want to block unwanted applications, you can use the blacklisting feature. So here it is going to block those business applications that are not supposed to be used in some computers. So I'm just going to select those that I don't want, and I'm going to create a policy for that. And any computer, because we deploy these policies to a group. So like I mentioned, you'll be able to create groups for different scenarios, and you can target it to any groups that you create. And all those computers in the group will get this policy applied on them. So for example, if you're blocking that particular VLC or torrent sites, none of them will be able to access that. So that's how we deal with application control. There are other features in application control plus as well, like giving elevated permissions for a time being, or removing admin rights for certain applications. So these kinds of features can be accessed with the help of the application control plus as well. So another scenario that we are facing is here in this example, John is receiving a lot of help desk requests to install various business applications, and he would like to see how this can be minimized. He definitely need a solution to decrease the amount of requests that he is getting, right? So we have come up with something called a self-service portal. It is available in the Desktop Central, where you can publish a group of software to a group of computers, and the users can install the ones they need. So we call that a self-service portal. Okay. So for example, here I'm going to create a group where I want the users to install the packages themselves. So they don't have to create a service request whenever they want these applications. So it is available for them, and they will have the self-service portal. Once they publish it to this group of computers, so to all Windows 10 computers, I'm publishing it. And when I do that, all these computers will have something called a self-service portal. I can either place an icon in their desktop, they can open that, and they can install it from there, or I can place it in the start program so they can open it. They will be able to see something like this. Let me just give you a quick look at it. So yeah, so they will be able to see all those applications that I have published, and they can click on install. They will be able to install it themselves. So as I mentioned earlier, this is going to use system user privilege. So you don't have to worry if the user doesn't have an admin right. So though the user is initiating it, it's the agent that is going to take care of it. So it'll be able to install it with the system user privileges in these machines. And we also have this option where the user can request for a software. This particular feature is only available when you are using Service Desk Plus along with Desktop Central. So we can, Service Desk Plus is our ticketing tool, um, which will be focusing on help desk requests and asset management. So in this tool, if you are integrating with Desktop Central, you will be able to request for, the user will be able to request for a software. Only upon your approval will they be able to install it, or it will automatically push the installation. We'll see how this works, right? For example, here the client is requesting the installation of a particular software. You will be seeing this in the Desktop Central under self-service portal. So you'll be getting a request here and you'll be approving it. Once you approve it, you'll be able to see the approval information there in the Service Desk Plus site, and you can, as soon as it is approved, Desktop Central will authorize the installation and users will be able to see the application installing in their machines. So this complete workflow is automated with the help of Service Desk Plus integration. And we'll also see about the common error messages that we receive when we deploy a software, right? So this is something that as a support technician I face with very frequently. What are all the software? For example, here, the first error message that you see is system cannot find the path specified. It is something that you usually get, both the options, both the error messages. The system cannot find the path specified or the access denied. Both of them are commonly seen in case if you're using a network share. If the users doesn't have access to a network share, or if the credentials being used for the network share is not something they have permission for, in such cases, they'll be receiving this particular error. And also, if there are any antiviruses which are running in strict modes, if you download the exe files, the antivirus might intervene with it, or there might be policies within your network which might intervene with this particular file and they may remove it. So even in such scenarios, we'll be able to see this access denied error when you do a software deployment. And the second one is no silent switch or invalid silent switches. So this is easily understandable. So it's clearly saying that the software that you're deploying to, it doesn't have a valid silent switch in it. So any software that we deploy from Desktop Central, if it is an exe type file, we will need a silent switch to be included along with it. So a silent switch is something that you get from the vendors of that particular application. And most applications that are targeted for an enterprise will have a silent switch in it. So all we do is just Google it or just go to their forums or get their user guide. You will have the necessary information for that silent switch. So you just use them to get them deployed. And we are seeing a scenario here. So John has to push a Zoho meeting app to an enterprise mobile phones. So this is not a desktop or a laptop. We're talking about mobile phones here. So this is not going to be the traditional method. So like I mentioned, we also deal with modern management within Desktop Central's UEM. So when in mobile device management, we have an option where you can add applications. We can add the devices, like we can enroll the devices, we can group them, we can profile them, and we also have the option to add apps to its repository. So any business application you want, you can add it to the repository and you can deploy it straight away from here. Or if it is an application that is available in a store, in Apple Store or in Google Play Store, or even in Windows Business Stores, we'll be able to add them here and use that to get it deployed to all your mobile phones or any Windows phone devices that are enrolled. So in this case, if you want to deploy it to an iOS device, we'll be able to add it to add the relevant application for iOS to the app repository. From there, he'll be able to distribute to all their client, all the devices to which he intend to. Now we'll see some frequently asked questions. Most are scenario based, and these are some of the common scenarios that we face as a support technician on a daily basis, right? So all of them are related to software deployment. So first question is, can I reinstall the essential application automatically if it gets uninstalled? So this is commonly asked to us because we are in the work from home scenarios mostly, and the users tend to uninstall some important applications, which we don't want to happen. So how to prevent this, and if they uninstall it, how to reinstall it automatically? So under software deployment, when you are targeting a particular application, right? When you are deploying a software, let's say in this case I'm doing Zoom, and I'm selecting this to be deployed to all the computers in my domain, or maybe to a particular group of computers. I'm just selecting the group which I just created, right? So all the computers in this group is going to receive this application based on what I do. So in this scenario, I need to prevent it from getting uninstalled. So it's not a direct option here. I can do something called apply this configuration at every startup, right? And I'm going to include something where for this particular application, I'm going to add a pre-deployment check, where if the application is not available, it needs to install it, right? So I have Zoom here. I've just modified this package to include this pre-deployment setting. I'm going to check for the software, and the software equals Zoom. And this is the version. So if this version is found, I'll be skipping the installation. I can either do this, or I can choose an older version. If it finds an older version, I can install I can proceed with the installation. So it depends on your requirement. We can choose it accordingly. Okay. So in this case, I'm skipping it because this software is already found in the user's database. Right. So I'm modifying the package. Once I've modified it, I'll be selecting this option. So you'll have the information now. So in case if you forget to include the pre-deployment settings, it will remind you that you need to have a check for that as well. So every startup, when the computer will be starting up, and the agents will receive this configuration, and it will see if the software is there. If the software is there, it will not install it. If the software is not there, if it is uninstalled, it will understand that it needs to be reinstalled, and it will get it installed over those machines. So that's how we will ensure if the software is removed, we'll be able to reinstall it. In case if you want this to be frequent, you don't want to wait for the startup, you can also enable this option to apply this configuration during every refresh cycle. Like I mentioned, this is going to be every 90 minutes. The agents will communicate with the server. If it finds the software is removed, it will automatically install the software. So you'll be able to ensure by this way, any uninstalled essential software will get reinstalled in it. The second question is, I have a third-party application that does not support silent installation. How can I install it? So like I mentioned earlier, most of the enterprise-focused applications will have a silent switch. It's just that we need to get the user guide or reach out to the vendor to do that. In case, if I don't have a silent switch, I'll be able to use the option where I can allow the users to interact with the installation. So with the deployment policy, we will support something called notification. We can notify the users that a software is going to install that will need their intervention, and then you can allow the users to interact with the installation and the uninstallation window. When you do that, it will be like a regular installation of a software. It will initiate a window where they will have to click on next or provide the essential parameter, and then completely install the product themselves. So that is also possible. In case if you don't want to do that, if there is a script that you can come up which can perform the silent installation, we have an option to deploy custom scripts as well. So you can um, use the script and get it deployed to those machines as well. So one way or other, we will be able to achieve this scenario as well here. So the third question is, I tried to deploy a business app to a computer, but it failed. Is there a way to troubleshoot it myself? Yes, any software or any activity that you do through Desktop Central is logged. So it will be available in the logs. If it is an MSI file, we'll be creating a separate log for that particular software like this. And you can just go through that log file to see what exactly happened, and you can fix it. But mostly we'll be using configurations to deploy a software, and any software that you have deployed, you'll be able to see the status of the software that you have deployed. For example, if you're deploying it to 100 computer, right, you'll be able to see the summary of all. It will tell you, the chart will give you the information about on how many computers it got succeeded, how many got failed, how many are in progress. So all these information will be available here, and the execution status will give you more information about each and every software installation. For example, in this particular software, it is saying it's set to apply. If it has failed, I'll be able to see in the remarks why it is failed, and that'll be a KB. I can just click on the KB article. It'll redirect me to a documentation where it'll tell you what are the steps that you can perform to get the software installed successfully on those machines. So that's how you troubleshoot it yourself in case if you would like to do so. The fourth question is, when I create a package using the templates, what happens if a new version of the application is released? So this is also a commonly asked question. So I have already have a package for a particular software. What will happen if a new version of that application is released? So the templates that we have here are regularly checked by our team. So like I mentioned, we have a dedicated team who will be looking over it. And when there is a new version installed, we'll be adding it to our templates. We'll be updating it. And the same can be done using this auto update templates. So you can select those applications that you want to automatically update. And even in self-service portal, you have this option where to the groups where you have published this software, when there is an update available, you'll have an option to update it directly in their console. It's available for both Windows and Mac OS. So moving on, if you're using a secure gateway server in our setup, do the external clients still need to connect to the HTTP portal for software, or can they directly go to the network share via secure gateway server? So this is something that we talked about in our architecture, right? So we have the network share and a HTTP repository. So only those locally connected machines, or those that are connected through VPN, will be able to access the network share if they have permission for it. So if they don't, if they are connecting through the internet via the secure gateway server, they are practically, it just practically says that they don't have direct access. They don't have local access to the network share available. So they have to use the HTTP repository in that case. And any computer that is inside or outside will be able to receive that particular software if we go with the HTTP repository option. Sixth question is, if I want my software packages to be replicated to the remote office. How do I achieve it? So this is also something that we talked about earlier. So we have distribution servers available in each locations. So if I want a particular software to be replicated to the remote office, when I'm targeting it, I will be targeting it to a remote office. I can create remote offices within Desktop Central. Each remote office will, let me go through that. So I can create a separate office for each location where I have my computers in. So I can create it with a distribution server, or I can do a direct communication like we discussed earlier. If you're doing it through a distribution server, if you're targeting it to a remote office, the software that you're deploying will be copied over to the distribution server over the internet, and then it will be distributing it to all the client machines using the local intranet connection. So with the distribution server, we should be able to achieve this easily. The seventh question is when multiple software are deployed in sequence, if the first package fails, does it attempt to continue? How is notification sent back? So we do have an option when we add multiple software, we'll have an option where the users can proceed with the installation even with the first software fails. But if you don't enable that, if the first software fails, the users, it will not go with the second installation. So though it is in the sequence, it'll wait for the first installation to complete, and then it will go with the second installation of it. So you can do this during the package installation as well. So this is with respect to Service Desk Plus integration. So they have 11 technician licenses in Service Desk Plus, but only one technician license in Desktop Central. So is it possible to set the self-service portal with only one technician license in Desktop Central? Yes, of course, one technician license is enough for it. The Service Desk Plus integration alone needs a common technician to be present in both Desktop Central and Service Desk Plus. If we can achieve it, for self-service portal, it doesn't need each technician to have a separate license. So just that one technician license is enough for them to manage self-service portal using Desktop Central. So we have come to the end of this session. So we have discussed about software deployment. In case if you have any questions, we have a live Q&A session happening. Our senior panelists are available through the chat, and they'll be able to answer it live. So please post your questions in the Q&A section.
Thank you, Surya. That was a wonderful presentation. Can you hear me, Surya?
Yeah, Santosh. Thank you. I can hear you.
Perfect. So let me go ahead and share my screen.
Right.
Perfect. So thank you very much for joining, guys. So we have a live Q&A session. We'll be answering your questions live. So in case you have questions, please keep it coming on the Q&A. I do have a lot of questions that has already been posted on the Q&A. So I'm going to try answer some of the questions, at least some of the burning questions. So the first one being that's related to the Service Desk Plus integration. So I'm sure a lot of you are already using Service Desk Plus and would like to know the integration benefits of it. From the software deployment side, let me show you the different benefits. First of all, so this is Desktop Central console, in which we go ahead and configure the self-service portal in order to raise request from the self-service portal. So I go to software deployment. The first step was I'm sure Surya showed you how to create this on the self-service portal. So you go to action, modify, whatever applications that you drag and drop on the panel that says requires approval prior to installation will appear on the self-service portal as you need as request. So this is self-service portal on the customer side, right? So you can see the different packages that I have added is available here. So the moment I click on request, it's going to asking me for a reason. So I just say test and send request. So it's going to create a ticket and a request on the Service Desk Plus side, right? Let me open up Service Desk Plus and show you how it will be shown. So this is Service Desk Plus. Please don't bother about the licensing warning that it says. So it's just a trial version that I'm trying to show you guys. So on the administrator, or however you can set Service Desk Plus in such a way that you get approval to a specific administrator, right? You can do all that using the service catalog. I'll show you that in a minute. But once the request is raised, you can see the request is coming over here, right? It comes as a request. And if you have configured to automatically go to a specific approver on Service Desk Plus, it comes like that. And you can go ahead and click on approve. The moment you click on approve, it's going to get the application installed automatically on the endpoint side, right? That's how the approval works. Now, how do you get this approval? I mean, this is a process, right? That was one of the questions that we asked. So what do you do there is, first thing is I have to enable the integration settings. So I go to settings on the Service Desk Plus, and I go to the option that says Desktop Central Server. So I have already integrated these settings, and in that, you should have all these enabled: install, uninstall software. You should make sure it is available for all roles. Make sure you select all those. The second step is you go to Service Catalog. So go here, search for Service Catalog. In Service Catalog, you will go to Software. And in Software, you can create a Service Catalog, right? Once you create that, copy that Service Catalog name, whatever catalog that you create. And of course, it's going to go ahead and say who should be the approver and things like that. So you will go ahead and configure all those things over here. And once you do that, you copy the Service Catalog name and you come back to Desktop Central. You go to Self-Service Portal Settings, and you paste that Service Catalog, whatever you have created, you paste that name over here. So when the request is raised, whatever Service Catalog or whatever approval process that you have created on Service Desk Plus, it will follow that specific catalog, and it will go to the specific approver, right? That's how you go ahead and create these automatic approvals. So that's been one of the questions that was asked. So I thought I'll answer that. Now, of course, when it comes to Service Desk Plus integration, since we were on that page, you have a lot of other things as well. Say, for example, a request is raised. Let me go to the home page. A request is raised for installing a specific software. So I go to pending requests, and I have a ticket that was created in Service Desk Plus. I click on that. And if I want to install application right out of here, I don't even have to go to Desktop Central. So I go to Custom Actions. I click on Install, Uninstall Software. Then I go ahead and select the software that I want, and I say which workstation it has to go to. So the moment you select the workstation from there, and you click install, and then you click on save, it's going to get the application installed on that specific asset automatically, right? And if you have if asset is automatically linked to the request, then it will choose the asset automatically. Right? So that's question 1. Okay, there are a lot of questions that are coming up. I'll try to answer the ones that would be, beneficial for everyone. The rest, I have one more colleague of mine, Felix, who will be answering you live on the chat itself. Perfect. So there was a question about the database. It's an Postgres SQL, PGSQL database. Up to 5,000 machines if you're managing, you can use it. But more than that, we would recommend you to go for MSQL. So that's the answer for that. And just trying to see. So can I access the packages that are created on the OS deployment side? No, we will not be able to access those packages from the software deployment side. So there was a question about what are the different templates, 8,000 plus templates. I don't see it. The reason could be this. The template that comes in here depends on the number of machines that you have installed on the operating system, especially. So when I say 8,000 different templates, I would say most of them would be Linux and then Windows and then Mac. That's the order that we have. So if I go with the operating system, say, if I say Windows alone, you will have close to 1,800 commonly used applications, and then so on for Mac. And then if you go into Ubuntu and Debian and so on. So the reason why you may not see the number of templates over there is probably because that specific operating system is not there in your environment. And that's probably why it's not syncing up with our servers. So how to alert an administrator if an not approved app is installed? So at the moment, we can do it in two ways. If you have security add-on with you, which we call it as app control, we have an option where we can blacklist the applications. And the moment, first of all, they will not be even able to install those applications. If you require more information about application control, just go for the video. Earlier presentation would be done by me, the Unified Endpoint Security webinar. You should be able to get those details on that webinar. But for the simple things, if you are not having application control that's part of security add-on, you can configure alerts. So you can go to the configure alerts on the inventory, and you can say if there is any installation or uninstallation of software specifically that's related to prohibit software. So you can add prohibit software list on the inventory. Next is our asset management module. We'll talk more about it, but answering the questions, you can go to the prohibit software and add a list of prohibited software here, and then come to the configure alerts. And the moment you select, say, hey, if there is any installation of prohibited software that I have given in the list, shoot an alert to me, and that's how you do it. So there was another question that's related to, if how do I get the softwares downloaded prior to the installation time? So that's based on the deployment policy. So I go to software deployment. So I go to deployment policies. In deployment policies, I click on create policy. See, in one of the pre-deployment activity is that we have an option that says, just trying to get that for you. Okay, that's interesting. So I'm having some issues in loading up the page. So we do have an option that says download deployment during the subsequent cycle. That would help you out in downloading those softwares prior to getting it installed on those machines. Right. What is the difference between a computer configuration and a user configuration? The difference is that if you are going to target it for a user, say that would come handy whenever you are deploying it based on the user types, right? Say some of the applications, some of the applications like Skype, or probably some of the applications that that requires user profiles, right? You go with user-based deployment. If it's based on computer, then something like Chrome, it doesn't matter if you deploy it to a computer or to a user, it installs in both the ways. But specific applications do not work in that way. That's why you have to either target a user or target a computer. That's why you have that difference. So any difference between the features available on-prem server and on the cloud server? So with respect to software deployment, you do not have any differences. We offer both, especially, of course, the integration part will be different. Integration of Desktop Central with Service Desk Plus and other products will be different on cloud and on-prem. But with respect to software deployment module, you will not have any difference. So there is another question that's not related to software deployment, that's related to Wi-Fi settings. Yes, that's possible. If you require more information on that, we have mobile device management webinar going on. Probably you can attend that. And yes, you should be able. The question is whether I can set a specific Wi-Fi for specific device. Yes, that's possible. So if you require more information on that, you can register for the mobile device management program. So the one more difference between what is the difference between deploy immediately and deploy. So if I go to the configuration, if I click deploy now, deploy, it goes into into the 90-minute cycle. Whenever the machine is available, you go ahead and deploy it during the next 90-minute cycle whenever they contact the server. The moment I click on deploy immediately, it immediately asks the agent to contact the server. It takes the package and deploys them. But this is limited to only 50 machines at a time, right? That's because of the load that will come to the server as well as to the network bandwidth. So we have limited it to 50 machines. After the 50th machine, everything will go on the next 90-minute cycle. Whenever the machine reaches the server, we'll go ahead and give the package to it. So it's deploy immediately is limited to 50. Right. I'm going to wait for a few more minutes probably to answer the questions. So is deploying EXE the same as deploying the MSI? No, there is a difference. Let me probably show that to you. So when you create a package for an MSI, you really don't worry about the silent switches. You don't have to even give an MSI exit command also. So you just simply upload the package, whatever you want, or put the name of the share wherever it is, and then put the just file name. Let's say I want to install Skype. I'm just doing it real time for you. So Skype, I'm going to upload the package for the Skype. So upload Skype. So it's an MSI installer. So all I have to do is just say Skype.msi. That's it. So it will take care of installations. I don't need any switches. As you can see, switches are not required for MSI files. But in the case of an EXE, it doesn't work like that. You will have to post the silent switches that is provided by the vendor. That's the difference between these two. Is there a specific license for distribution server alone in remote batch? No, we do not have separate licenses. If you have enterprise version of Desktop Central, we don't. There is no limit in the number of distribution servers that you can deploy. Perfect. I think that should be the end of the questions. The rest of the questions, I'll try to answer it on the chat window alone. We'll be there for a little over 5 minutes. And if you have questions, please post it on the chats. I'll try to answer all those questions. And for the rest of you guys, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And Surya, it's a wonderful presentation. And in case while you're leaving the webinar, please do rate us on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 being the best. You can leave a feedback as well. It will help us to improve our future webinars as well. Then we have upcoming training that's on asset management. That's on September 15th. Please make sure you register through the same link through which you have registered for software deployment. And we should be seeing you next week, Wednesday at the same time. And if you'd like to have a personalized demo of any of the modules that you see in Desktop Central, or especially with software deployment, feel free to leave it on the chat, or you could go to the URL that's shown on the screen as well. With that, we are going to finish. From Santosh and Surya, thank you very much for joining us. You guys have a wonderful day.